Thank you for having me. This is a little presentation I made for some students last year, and this updated version of everything that happened in the last 12 months in terms of entrepreneurship in this area. So hope you like it. Let me know what you think. My background is I've been working in startups for the last 8 years or so. Started my own company first time in 2005. It was a mobile social network. We built out apps originally for those feature phones. I'm not sure if you guys are old enough to remember those phones before the iPhones. They're like these flip phones. Yeah, they were awesome back in the day, like 12 years ago or something like that. Yeah, it was all the rage. Motorola was killing it, Nokia was killing it, and then iPhone came around and that changed the system, and everything sort of got like restarted in terms of mobile ecosystem. So it's quite interesting. But I managed a startup that built out products for the feature phones. We got kind of sideswiped with the iPhone coming out because we were all committed to these already existing platforms, and we ended up just selling our company eventually and exiting the market, working for the guys who bought us for a while, and that was sort of my first startup story. And then since then, the consulting, building out companies for other entrepreneurs, and these are sort of the lessons from the last couple of years. Just a show of hands, how many of you guys either have worked in your own companies or are thinking about starting a company in the future? Yeah, okay, gotcha. And this is computer science class, right? In general?
Interactive design.
Human graphic design, right?
Interactive, yeah.
One of my favorite classes in computer science was human graphic design, so it's quite interesting. Back in the day when I first started computers was, I believe it was like 87 or 88. One of my first memories as a kid was playing around with punch cards, where you feed them in and then you get data out of them, out of these machines. And now we're talking about something beyond point-click interfaces, things that visualize your hand gestures as they sort of videotape continuously, your environment around you. So anyways, let's start. And obviously don't write this down, it's all online. Feel free to ask questions anytime you want, just jump in. Yeah. So we're just gonna talk about what entrepreneurship is, kind of. And then I'll give you some ideas on how to get started, basically. I guess some of you guys might be graduating, others might be looking for things to do in the summer or in the winter, and you really don't need to graduate to jump into a startup. You don't need to even start your own company to start in this industry, so there's many things you can do. And then some Q&A, and supposedly we're going to get some food afterwards and some local place, if you guys are still interested. Okay, so there's going to be a definition. You can type this into Google and it gives you this thing. But essentially, pretty good definition of that. You have to find something that's not been fixed. You have to figure out a way to fix it, and then in that process, you create some sort of value for everybody else involved. And somewhere along the lines there, they give you money for it, or everybody's down to give you money for it, or you can carve out your own piece. In other ways you can talk about it is sort of idiomatic expressions you guys hear of. It is sort of like finding diamond in the rough. There's a lot of coal out there, and most of the time entrepreneurs spend time just sifting through coal and getting all dirty and stuff, and then eventually find something that's like amazing, and then continuously kind of like grow it. Most of the time you start out with nothing, which is the stone soup effect, where you have an idea which is a figment of your imagination, which will not be the final sort of idea that gets funded, not the final idea that people pay money for, not the final idea that is the thing that's going to change the world, but you have something, and as you add minds to the equations, you add resources to the equations, commit other people time, energy, effort, resources, you create some sort of soup, a primordial soup you want to call it, that allows you to create things you did not anticipate, that lets you actually build value. Looking at something and just saying, oh, let's build this, is a very small part of actually making value in entrepreneurship. It's probably less than 1%. The actual idea in the company that's fully thought out, the technology in the company is something like 3% of the company's success. So that makes you think, like Apple is extremely successful. They're not successful in technology. There's other reasons why Apple is successful. And people talk about that all the time, but it's not technical. It's not a technical reason. It's more about how they do things, how they get people excited about what they do, and how they sell. And so selling is really important. Setting up the domino effect is really important, which is about sort of creating this image that makes your audience believe that you are the next Steve Jobs, that you're the next Google, that you're the next big thing, that somehow something you do is going to cause a chain reaction, that's going to cause a butterfly effect, that's going to cause some sort of explosion of like life and like whatever, an ecosystem of sorts where everybody's making money and everybody's happy, because that's what it's all about, right? What's up? Sorry. No question? No question. So, but functionally again, it's like you gotta find a problem, and it has to be a real problem, and this is the thing about real problems. So, real versus imaginary problems. There's things that are nice to have, and there's things that are really like you can't live without. And a nice to have would be maybe a shopping site that focused on shoes. That's nice to have, but you can survive without that because Amazon does shoes kind of well. Specifically, it would be, that's not Universal, but a genetic pathway company that's solving your specific gene defect, and this only happens in maybe like 0.5% of the population of the world. Like that's very and if you don't have it, maybe you can't process food and you die. Like that's one of those need to have things that you can't really live without, and that's the real difference. Like real problem is something that you can't avoid living, and if you don't live without, if you live without, you will really suffer or die. Versus color change is not a real problem, and style change is probably not a real problem, unless it really changes how people discover things with them. And getting people to use your solution is probably one of the hardest things. A lot of people have a lot of good ideas, and people can build things, but when you actually take it to the market and try to get someone to use it, then it's really hard, because realistically, the way things should work in your opinion is not really how things work in the real world. You are never the target audience because you are building something. So you're kind of like, even if you were a doctor, you're building something for doctors. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It's really cool. Is there any way to stop the flickering? I'm pretty sure it's probably tripping everybody out.
The spin, it sometimes happens.
Is that just because you're like...
Say it happens with PDF files.
Try just unplugging it and plugging it back
in. So getting people to use your stuff is really, really hard. Like, you have to have a plan for this. Ideally, people say you will build and they will come, but it only works in situations where you really have like a floodgate of need and nobody has solved it. Like, you're not going to build on Facebook and they will come because they already have Facebook. When they didn't have a Facebook or reliable Facebook, it made sense. You can find a smaller niche, you can build it, and they will come potentially because you're solving something. But realistically, to get people to use your solution, you really need to think about it. And the other thing is that you can be an entrepreneur in like a big organization. You can go work at Microsoft or Google or Facebook, which is now still a startup, I guess, but an organization that's huge, and you can still be an entrepreneur. It's totally possible. You can be an entrepreneur, which is basically building your like internal projects, working on labs, stuff like that inside a company. A lot of big companies now have venture arms within themselves or labs within themselves. So it's kind of cool. Statistically, you deal with a lot of small failures. Like I said, diamonds in the rough. You do like 1,000 pieces of code to get like something really good. And but the thing is, has anybody read The Black Swan? It's an interesting book by Nassif, I think. But anyways, it's a statistic-based book. It essentially talks about how all things that have happened that have been important have been unexpected. The invention of the internet was not designed to create web pages and social networking to activate people. It was designed for space scientists and military people and all that stuff. It wasn't designed for this communication stuff, And like Google wasn't really intended the way it was created. They created a search engine, but they didn't expect it to make money from advertising and stuff like that. So like many significant things are not really expected. Nobody thought that Facebook was going to be so big. If somebody thought Facebook was going to be so big, they probably would have made it on Facebook. So, but the successes that do happen in this dependence rates, there's a lot of failures, but they're really small. The successes are really, really large when you have big successes. And so the idea is you try out a lot of things till you find one that really works, and then you use that to make a lot of wealth and money. Really there's, in my opinion, kind of like 3 skills that you really need to have. One is to have this vision, which is kind of like what you hear about Steve Jobs, where you have the ability to sort of make something a reality even though it doesn't exist. So it's like, I'm going to change the world. Right, you don't know me, but I'm going to change the world. Being able to change your reality based on my perception. That's really important because you have to convince people to, at first, give you time and energy and money before you have an office or investors or customers. And then, when you're trying to raise money, you're going to have to convince these people to give you $1 million, even though you've never done it before. It's all about the ability to change from reality and perceive things that don't exist. The other thing is definitely to execute, because you can't really get anywhere if you don't get things done. Execution is really important and really, really hard. You'll be surprised how fast things get out of hand in terms of things you can do as a startup. Even though you start out with a simple idea, as soon as you get past the phase of getting people interested and getting something that people are interested in general, you just think of about 1,000 things you can do with it. And realistically, you want to filter through down to the top 10 best ones, and then down to the top 3 ones you can actually execute as a team, and just go for them, and not get distracted. Flexibility, all what I have said is continuously up in the air, could be changed by the market conditions, and so you gotta be really ready for that. New mobile platform coming out, you gotta do something different. Or, Apple building out their own advertising network, or building out their voice search technology, or Facebook or Twitter replacing some of their social apps. It's a market-changing move where all of a sudden you're an app maker, for example, building for Facebook. Now you can't because they say that the specific type of app is something that they are making money from. Picking an idea. That's sort of, so now we're kind of switching over to operational. How do you go through the business of starting a startup, right? Find something that you can solve, basically, that you can actually build quickly and try out. Prototype as many times as possible yourself or with a small team, but hasn't been solved yet. And really the interesting thing about this one is that it depends on who you can attract into your company. So can't really do a really big engineering task if you have a bunch of marketing people. You can't really do a heavily designed website if all your people are engineers. So kind of depends on your team, what you go after. And it doesn't have to be the thing that you do forever. It's just something you stuck out with. Something that it's different between like where you're going to be at the end of your growth versus what you're on now. And here it's really important to show that you have vision and ability to execute, but it's not necessarily to have something perfect at all. It's just that you're a fast moving team that's able to like iterate. That's really important. And later on, if you get down a little further along, that's when you will need to be like really specific and you have the money to do that. So, building a team. So everybody talks about you have to get A+ talent because B talent is not good enough. There's a few things about that. First of all, in Silicon Valley, when you're starting out, a startup, first time you go around, it's really about just getting people to work with you more than getting the best people. That's important as well, but really it's again based on your network of contacts, and you always go for the best people you can get, but you end up getting the ones you can get out of the best people you can get. So availability is a real thing that beats down, and you always want to find A+ individuals and keep contact with them because at some point you might come up with an idea that they might be able to help you with, or vice versa, they might have something that they're working on that they want to involve you on. And the thing is, since it's like such a big talent war in Silicon Valley, you really want to make sure that she's not going to cause a problem within your own sort of community of people that you're working with, unless you are not afraid of having them leave you after a short amount of while. So, yeah, a lot of being flexible. So, building products can build quickly and release often. So, instead of sitting there for several months building something, make it release every week. And if you have a trusted group of customers, maybe like 10 people or something that you can like talk to and be buddy with, like come over, have tea with them, have coffee with them, whatever, and continuously show them your like improvements, iterations. Don't wait for several months and then show them something. You'll be like out in the woods and then will not know what the hell you're doing. The other thing about customers, the whole lead and listen type thing, is that if the customer knew what they wanted, they'd build it themselves, so they'd be on the market. The reason why it's not on the market is because either they don't know what they want, period, or the way they want it is not possible, not feasible, not buildable, too expensive, So, you have to listen, but you have to come up with a solution yourself, really. But then again, listen to their concerns. So, and again, focus. Ventures, diet, and digestion, which is eating too much. So, again, just when you start something out, focus on just getting things done early on and showing progress to your advisors, potential investors, potential people who want to work with you. And so you look for the easiest kills that you can find, the easiest food that you can eat, and just go ahead and eat it and consume it and like show people that you can do stuff. That's really important very early on. It also determines whether or not the team can stay together and whether or not you can work with these people. But obviously continuously think about the top goals and like, how it all fits the picture. What's the interesting thing is that when you do little simple tasks, little simple deals that to you seem to be very unimportant and not worthwhile, you discover flaws in your own product that you haven't thought of, or in your line of thinking in terms of onboarding of customers, or you can easily discover new opportunities to upsell, or new opportunities to sort of build more products. It's very interesting to sort of like it's like you pretend playing the real deals because these people are already kind of committed to you and they're friendly and they're really just working with you because they like you at this point because you've been talking to them for a while. But don't skip on a small deal. It's very important to like make sure you get everything right on the small guys. Market share. So startups go through a phase where essentially at first you're growing and it doesn't really matter how much money you're making. It's important to be making money, period, because you don't have a money making model. you're really in trouble. But everybody assumes that once you build a user base, you figure things out, you can make things more efficient, because that's just business processes, right? You do it the first time, the next time you do it, you're more efficient. We understand how that works. So like, we understand that your margins will improve. So don't worry about being super efficient. It's, especially if you find an idea that's really interesting, it becomes a land grab at some point. And during the land grab, you do not care about margins. You really just want the market share, because it's a land grab, and it's only a certain amount of time, and then when it's over, then it's going to be harder to fight for those people. You're going to have a talk, like a turf war versus like a land grab, which is much more difficult. So yeah, another thing is, again, that it's going to take a long time. People like burn out, so you have to keep executing, but you also have to not burn out. So this is a chart that Lex Sisney put together, and you can check out most of the stuff he does training seminars for executives, and he was in my university doing a presentation once. But essentially, the process he described is kind of like this. He came up with this, I guess. And you remember the sort of sales curve. You have the early majority, late majority, innovators, like super laggers or whatever. And as you go into this market, you're trying to sell to them, there's sort of like this chasm, marketing chasm. And you're going for the innovators, you really just want people to try it out. It doesn't matter what the hell it does, really, as long as they don't try it out. And it kind of does what it's supposed to do and it's supposed to help. Just have them try it out, learn a bunch, make it better, actually make a real product. And then you're going to have like early adopters. And there you have to like really figure out what the hell it is, because you don't want to have problems here. You want people to be really happy. You want to have numbers to show. You want to be beginning to really make money. And then scaling it is what you do after that, which is like you've like had an idea, figured out what the hell out of the idea is the diamond, and now you have a diamond of making factory that you're gonna make, and you're gonna make a lot of these diamonds, because like you know how to make one diamond, now you're gonna make 1,000 diamonds for the same amount of price and time that you did to make one diamond. So kind of interesting. And so you do this, and then you sort of at that point there's people coming in the marketplace with technology, and you're just sort of like milking it, and this is like the end of the business. And this could be done again and again with new product lines, but as a product line, this could be like 4 or 5 years, for example. So yeah, a lot of companies, come up with something cool, release a video, and try to go for a large scale, and fail it because they haven't product tested and haven't gone through and like fixed all the problems. And so some bugs come out, issues come out, they have to do recalls, and they have the money to sort of do that as a start. You can't really make a mistake like that because you don't have the money to, redo things like that. Like a recall of all of like 1 million devices is way too expensive for a start. So about getting involved. So start early. Like start today, start tomorrow, start whenever you can start. If you want to get involved, you don't have to graduate, you don't have to have some friends who started companies in college, I have some friends who been working in companies while they're in college and did really well, ended up being founders. So, do something, basically. And I mean, it's weird, but it's a catch-22. You really gotta just start doing something in the industry to really understand how things work and get involved. Like if you want to get into mobile apps, make a mobile app. If you want to get into social media, start a blog. If you want to build a web app, and release it. Put it on your Facebook and be like, "Yo, friends, download my app," and hear people say stuff about it. That already is like moving forward, which allows you to sort of innovate on that, and then you get weird results. Like somebody else invites you to go build something else, or work with them on something else, and you can hack it all together. So, anyways, there's several ways you can get in, but there's one that everybody knows about: start your own company. That's pretty risky, actually. Most startups fail, and most startups that get funding also fail. The most startups that get customers also fail. And most startups, and most companies that go IPO also fail. So companies fail a lot. The older they are, the less they fail in time, but they still fail. So starting a startup is really risky, actually. It's not the best lifetime of the company based on this thing right here. Based on this is not the best time to join. It's like really early and you're, kind of like taking a risk here. Another way is to just jump in and join a startup that doesn't have anything going for them yet. They're really early team, they just started, they don't have any funding, they might themselves have jobs and they work on weekends and nights, and those people who work are a lot more flexible and they don't have a structured hiring process. You can really get in, especially through your social network, to the company that you want to work in, and get like a really good position where you can do anything you want to do. But at the same time, it's very likely that they will fail, but you probably won't lose time because you're not committing anything else. So the easier way would be, and this is a little messed up here, I know. Apologies for the slide. Essentially, most important, acquire useful skills, and it's an easier way to get a job in a company. Like if you're a human interaction design class, you can use your skills to join virtually any startup in the Bay Area. A lot of them. It's a big talent war around here, so what you want to do as somebody who has computer science training is join a startup that has raised, their first institutional round, their second institutional round, some company that's between, be like 30 but less than 100. That allows you to have a lot of growth potential, allows you to meet the founders, have the opportunity to be very proactive and get to know the community, stuff like that. And also gives you a chance to have enough equity where if they cash out really big, you end up with a big chunk or, some significant amount within $1 million, $2 million, something like that. So that's probably the way I would suggest for somebody to do, but those are a little bit harder to get because everybody wants those jobs. It's like, you come into a company that's a scruffy startup, but they just raised $10 million, and you're their first hire after that, and you're getting a normal salary, but you're still getting stock options. Your risk ratio is sort of well balanced here. And you can always do one or two to get to three, really. So if you're doing your own startup, IT hires end up working for a cool company all the time. So there's a lot of tools now to learn online as well, outside class, as well as in class. And if you want to look at those. The one thing about learning I want to say is that if you want to learn and you're doing creatively, make sure that you're building something with it. Don't just read the information and don't do anything with it. That's no good. Build something, post on your Facebook, show people that you made something. It shows that you have some idea and some information. It also forces you to try a little harder, but that's just my perspective. For example, just to mention, last year, I am in mobile apps. I make mobile software. Last year, over Christmas time, to learn JavaScript. And with my friend, we sat for 2 weeks coding JavaScript extensions for Chrome, drinking beers. And, by the summer, we had over 60,000 users on our Chrome extensions. Some random stuff we built that click Pandora buttons for you from different windows. If you have Pandora, you have to click on the window that the Pandora is open in. We thought that was really annoying when you have 15 different windows open, so we're like, when we make an extension for Chrome that basically allows you to click that from any window, and also lets you have a hotkey that lets you go shift right, and you just click next from any window. So it's very simple stuff like that, and I don't know, lazylabs.com, we have 20 and 30 Chrome extensions that we built in like 2 weeks. Yeah, some of them, for example, one was Amazon. The one that we monetize makes about like $300 or $400 a month. And it's essentially it's a shopping. It's like, you know, in Chrome, instead of having to go to Amazon, you can just click this button and you can search in Chrome for stuff. And there's a referral link and we make money if somebody buys it. People have series download, like half a thousand people download this extension, and it's making us some money. So, you know, it's just, there's many ways you can do something on the side. So yeah, things in this area and all that stuff. So if you want to get involved, you should go to startup and demo nights, competitions and hackathons. You guys are blessed living in Silicon Valley because this is the place to be. There is a hackathon, startup demo night, and networking event every night of the year, probably more than one. So really it's just about figuring out what you want to do. You can go to meetup.com, you can just type into Google, you can go into Plancast, you can go into Facebook events, you can go into your favorite company's event sites, you can go into your favorite VC's event calendars, your favorite anything. They all sort of have event calendars. So yeah, connections are key. It's very interesting. People that you meet and you don't talk to for like a year, 2 or 3 years, now that social networking is around, they notice what you're doing as you change jobs and stuff like that, and they come back and talk to you and you're like, oh wow, you're doing this and this, it's really interesting. I didn't expect it, but I'm glad that we kept in touch. So that's thousands and thousands of people around you doing something interesting. It's a good idea to be friendly and stay in good touch and friendly with everybody. And use things like Startup Digest, which is a local startup that does listings of events and stuff like that. You can check it out, startupdigest.com. So there's so many incubators and accelerators that I changed this slide because previously I was listing them. Now there's too many to list. I recommend everybody, if everybody's interested in incubators or accelerators, to just go to f6s.com. I think it's like somewhere here. I can go down. f6s.com, and there now you can just see all the accelerators with dates, with locations, and you can apply, where's them. So applying to accelerators now is very easy. You just go fill out Gus.com profile, AngelList Co profile, and most accelerators you can apply for. There's co-working spaces like Hacker Dojo or Tech Shop, which you guys know about. Tech Shop is a pretty good local space you can go to. Meetup groups here are really popular. Meetup groups are good because there's like low barrier to entry. You just gotta go to a meetup and meet people and talk to them. Maybe there's like a $5 cover fee for food and drinks, but it's not bad. And you meet people who, some of them are veterans in the industry, some of them are doing startups, some of them are investors, just everybody somehow are still at these events and still interacting with the community, which is really interesting. Just search for stuff, basically, Also things, if you like companies, follow them along on Twitter, because if they have demo days, they'll invite you to come to their office and play out with their new technology, which is like an awesome way to meet the founders and get a job there if you want to. So another great way to get a job is to look at companies that get funded. If a company gets funded, they get funded to hire more people usually. And so if you hit them up pretty much right after they get funded, they might be able to hire you. You can also look to DFJ and a bunch of other venture capital firms' websites because they have job ads. You should hit up your alumni. Alumni probably from the San Jose State, working probably most of this area, and they probably are a really good source of jobs. So, Oh, that's just in general startup and life advice, I guess. Give or take, yeah. Live, be passionate, challenge yourself, and build a balance. You can email me if you have any questions, or if you're interested in internships a few of my friends are hiring at health-related startups and mobile gaming startups in San Francisco, mostly. Yeah, totally. That's fine. I will send you a link. It'll just be available online on Google Docs. It's just like totally just you can just share with your class if you like.
Is that the link you sent me?
Yeah. And I think I sent you last time. But I'll resend it. And so essentially, if you wanted to learn some more coding without taking more class, you can do it online through these sites. This is some of the incubators in the area. 500, Rock Health, Turn Labs, some of the tech shop areas, Hackadoos, where I'm at usually now here to get interested in a tour. And mostly, if you want to think about these, is that incubators and accelerators are not the same. They all call themselves similar things, but they're not similar things. The differences are: do they give you money? How much money do they give you? Do they give you actual support and guidance, or only do they provide you connections? Do they give you space? Do they not give you space? Are they physical location? Are they virtual? How long is the actual program? Things like that are all very, very different. So it's just very early in this area. Also with communal co-working spaces and hacker spaces, this is bio, this is for more like media, this is more like community or just all community driven. This is more like big in San Francisco. Tech shop is R&D, but also arts and crafts. Hackadoos is different, for example, because it's all community organized, so it's really, really cheap. But it's not, and like you can learn things there, but also a lot more scruff. Yeah, but check us out. We got a new space. Very nice. Yeah. Figure out what company you want. It's all about risk, really. If you start an early company, it's very likely it's going to fail, and it's not just going to be up to you. It's going to be partly up to you, but it's going to be largely up to you, obviously. But still, the point is it's going to fail likely. You learn a shit ton, but it might fail. Bigger companies have more of a thing where you have to fit into because they already have a culture, so you have to think about that. And really, you want to think about you want to think about yourself as a startup that's going through like many phases as companies. You want to like figure out like that gear that you're on versus the gear that the startup is on, and like if you guys shifted and working together, are you all going to be on the same gears at this specific point in your life and the startup's life? That's really what you want to find out, because if right now it might be right for a startup that's going to work midnight and weekends or whatever, but if I have a family and kids and this and that, maybe that's no longer the opportunity I can do, So different times, different things. So, and I think that's about it. Yeah, thank you.